Hey everyone, D here, and welcome. Oh, so excited to get into this Moon Knight. Disney Channel or Disney Plus, not Disney Channel, has gone and dived into a very unexpected direction. This is a complex character, a lot of darkness, a lot of weirdness to go into. Didn't think Disney had it in. I am so glad that they are. And we've got some great people to talk about it too. Of course, joining me up here on top, the man himself and sort of our little Moon Knight aficionado this evening from Smirking Reviews, it's Robb Stone.
What's up, everybody? I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm just going to kick it right to Corrie because I want to get started.
Yes. Well, hello, everybody. Glad to be here. I am the noob of the Moon Knight group. It's all new to me, but I'm excited to be here and share my enthusiasm.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we've got some awesome people joining us live in the chat. Wes Sager. Wes has been tweeting and I back and forth. Very excited about this evening's discussion. So excited that you could join us live. Silva Surfer, always here with us. And Bill Casey jumping in live as well tonight. Really excited that you guys are here. From the text, from the notes here in the chat, really excited for tonight's show and to dive into stuff. So let us get started. Corrie, since you are sort of our newbie, let's kick off with you. Not being familiar that much with Moon Knight, what did you think of our introduction to Stephen Grant and this whole storyline?
Yes, it kept me on my toes and constantly asking questions. I felt like I was watching a bit of a murder mystery or something because, there'd be key bits of information and then we glitch out, how I termed it, and then we'd be in a new situation. I was trying to figure out what's going on, who is this character, and why is he forgetting? Like, does he have memory loss? Does he have amnesia? So it's fun to just go along for the ride and try to pick up the clues as you went. And I'm, I love history and I love literature. So the whole thing with him working at a museum that I've been to because I studied in London. So it's kind of neat to see that, be like, oh, I've been there too. And just impressed with his knowledge of Egyptian history and all of that. So yeah, that was basically, I was mostly confused trying to figure things out, but it was a fun confusion because you knew something else was coming and, you just kind of held on to your seat for the ride and went with it.
And did you feel by the end that you kind of were like, okay, I think I get a handle on this character, or at least sort of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of came to the conclusion that he either has multiple identities or like a dissociative identity or something, or a split personality. Something's going on there. Whether or not the person that he's hearing is his own identity, or if it's like a god from Egypt that's trying to take him over, which I was kind of like, seems like that's what's happening. We'll find out, or I'll find out. You all know, so you're like, it's this.
Well, but that's perfect. So for an opening, I was going to say, for an opening episode, then it really it does its purpose. It introduces you to the character. It leaves you a little kind of off foot, but by the end, you kind of have an idea what's going on. So from a general pilot episode standpoint, it does a good job. Of course, we're going to dive into so much more of what it does as well. Robb, now I know you've really been waiting for this show to come up. What did you think of this? How did this satiate, satisfy, or not your expectations on our story of the Moon Knight?
I've talked about this probably on my channel at random points. I've talked about it probably on your channel at random points. I don't always wear my fandoms on my sleeve or on my shirt or whatever. I mean, I have this little Funko, but I don't have like shirts and everything. And I don't even have all the issues of this book. But when I first read Moon Knight way back in the 80s, and all these years later, I loved it then. But all these years later, when somebody says, I don't know what books to read from Marvel, what should I read? It's all Moon Knight is the first two words out of my mouth every time. And I love the X-Men. Everybody also knows that. But if you're looking to get into something and get hooked, I always say Moon Knight. And this first episode is such a great. It is basically the best version that I could have hoped Disney Plus would make, because there's this line that Moon Knight is a weird book. Moon Knight is a weird character, and it is a blast and a mind trip, and I love it. But you have to also recognize the audience doesn't know this character. 99% of the people out there don't know who Moon Knight is. They've looked up the Wikipedia. They've asked some of their nerd friends, whatever. So you have to consider them that are going in fresh, and you also want to pay tribute to the source material and the fans that really love this character. And they found a balance so far to not go too weird, and it's really weird. But they don't go full Moon Knight. They can't, because if they
never go full Moon Knight,
you're gonna lose like a good chunk of your audience. And when a lot of our shows that we really like, that we don't understand why they got canceled, I think a lot of them fall into that category of the audience doesn't know what to make of it if you go too far in one direction. So this show is right now, it's balancing the perfect balance of weird and accessible. And I fully expect from here on out to it just get weirder. But I think once you start to ease people into this, the more they'll accept, the more that they'll be talking about it. And what I kind of hope is that shows like this will open up like people's minds to checking out things that they didn't before, like Legion or even Fight Club, for God's sake. There's still a ton of people who have not seen Fight Club out there. So this really can open up new doors. And we have so much more to say about it. But again, I couldn't be happier about how this started. I was smiling from beginning to end, and I was ready to point out things that like really bugged me. But there are so few things that really bugged me that this is like the best thing that they've done. And I include WandaVision. WandaVision really changed the game. But since WandaVision, this is the first thing that really truly impressed me as far as the MCU goes, and the Marvel, the Disney Plus shows, and what's possible out there for them to do. And I'm sorry, I'll stop.
I know it's easy to go, and I think I'm glad that you brought up Legion, because you know that the makers of this are taking some influence off of that. They're taking there was some love that they have gleaned off of this, because I mean, as you guys know who have watched my channel regularly, the kinds of things that really get into me when we deal with identity and questions of reality and those types of really diving into the deep questions on the mind is what really kind of gets into me. And that's one of the things I think that really grabbed me about this, and the fact that they are able to do it beautifully. There's a lot of time spent with camera work and imagery and overlay, the use of duality, the constant use of reflections and mirrors and half faces in the museum as he's moving around and switching things off. It just gives such a wonderful extra layer onto stuff, and where they can play with things like, did something move in the background or not? Is that real? Is that not? What's happening? There's two sides to everything in this, even though, of course, if you're familiar with Moon Knight, there's definitely more than two sides to him. But the fact that they've spent the time to do it, and Rob, I think you hit it there really nicely. They found that balance. You can't go full Legion in this, not on Disney Plus. But you can glean that weirdness, the fact that we'll trust the audience to go with us if we just, make it right. And I think they've definitely done the time in this to create a great character. The fact that we're introduced to the character by someone who has no idea that they are the character, and kind of through their own discovery, I think is the perfect intro if you're not going to have a Robin or a sidekick character that is usually serves as our introduction. We can actually be introduced with the character itself. I think was a wonderful idea. And before I move on to the real bits, Ethan Hawke. When we get into him, I'm going to talk some wonderful stuff because I believe he didn't want to do, or he has downplayed discussions of Marvel movies and things years ago. And I am so glad that he came in, and I think this is the perfect way to do it because it is not your standard villain, and I love that choice. So let us get into things. Of course, before I do, I want to be sure to say hi to Don Willie, popping up in the chat here as well. Nice to see you, Don. And Rena Dietrich also in. So the chat is going, really enjoying the first episode. Bill Casey loved that they showed from Steven's perspective, hammering in the disorientation and confusion. Wes Sager just very thrilled about this. Oh, Silva definitely recommending the 2006 series is a good place to start for modern readers to check out for Moon Knight. Him really appreciating Robb's little collection there. So let us get into our introduction to Stephen Grant. Because again, like I said, I think this is an interesting way to bring us into a character, someone who is not a hero, I think you would say, in any way, shape, or form. Smart, knowledgeable about his stuff, but has no people skills. Corey, what did you think of our Stephen Grant intro?
Oh, well, at first I was very confused why he was chained to a bed. I was just like, what's going on here? Is he being kidnapped? Like, what, and obviously it became clear that he's been doing all these things to prevent himself from leaving. Why he's leaving or walking around, we didn't know at that point, right? I don't know. I mean, he comes across as just a very confused but good guy who's trying so hard and just has the worst luck, missing his bus, getting put on inventory. So I kind of just felt sorry for him. It was, he was like the Steve Rogers before the serum and also without any of the gutsy to him as well.
A very schlumpy character for an introduction. Yeah.
But it's nice to see the different versions of him. I think that's what's going to be most interesting as we continue through the series is how does Isaac transform into all these different versions of Moon Knight, and that's what a good actor can do, right?
Sure. Rob, what about yourself? How did you think about using Stephen Grant as our introductory character and sort of how they sort of establish where he's coming from?
Now, see, I'm almost like, this is unprecedented right now because I don't want to spoil anything. Corey, it doesn't seem like a lot of people, I know that I bet you dollars to donuts, about 75% of the chat right now knows a lot about what's going on. But I feel like I'm going to censor some of myself so that Corey goes into next week not knowing everything. Because I think that would be awful. I'm going to try to stay away from spoilers.
Okay. Very good of you.
Thanks, Rob.
Starting with Stephen Grant could go down a lot of rabbit holes that would explode this entire show in episode 1. And I think anybody else can do that, so I'm going to rein it in. I'm going to say that it is such a cool choice to start with Stephen Grant. Now, he is not the same Stephen Grant in the books. The personality of Stephen Grant is not the same. And that doesn't matter. And I think that, in fact, the Stephen Grant personality in the books probably should be tweaked to be a lot of fun and there'd be a lot of comparisons to another person who works at night and beats people up. So to make him just a guy in a gift shop, and he's from London, and that was throwing people for a loop. Why is he talking British and everything? And gives you the everyman perspective of the situation that he doesn't realize how deep he's in to all of this. There's a whole universe that's going on that's trying to do their job, and Stephen Grant is preventing it right now. But he's necessary for what the audience doesn't really know. And then you got Oscar Isaac playing this guy.
Yeah.
How do we keep, like, I didn't think we could hit the high watermark again. But now we did it. Like, we've got 2 high watermarks in the same episode that are like epic powerhouse actors. And we already know that Ethan Hawke is the other one. And I as much as I love my comic book shows and movies and comic books themselves, I look at Oscar Isaac and I'm like, you're too good for this. But that's the great thing about it is he's not. But the fact that he was willing to, like, look at this on paper and say, this is for me, and then give it 1,000,000%, because he's not phoning any single moment at all. This is the best acting we've seen in the MCU. I'm just going to say it, okay? This is the best acting we've seen in the MCU from a lead actor. And that goes all the way to, like, Robert Downey Jr. He had a really long run, but it's over. And this is the perfect person, like, with that different kind of character, but like a weird personality for us to latch onto. And I think that because of his performance, he is going to elevate this. And again, this show could go on for a while, and I hope it does. But him being, like, so lost in his own world, but yet he is clearly there for, like, in the museum for a reason, that he thinks I love how he thinks he's in control and how he's playing multiple personalities in the same scene just by doing handwork.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was right at the beginning with the pyramid and the little girl, and it's like this, like, oh, he's talking to her and he's just being, like, giving some exposition that he knows a lot about Egypt, but really he's pushing her away from the pyramid, so his hand, unbeknownst to himself, is taking the scarab. And they get to do that multiple times, and it should be a cheap trick, but it's the way that he plays it. It's not. It's brilliant. And I gotta stop. Myself. I said it. Rein it in. Rein it in.
No, but hey, I love the passion. And I do want to kind of move on to kind of the bigger, more action stuff, because I think we've hit all the big things on his intros. Did want to mention real quick, of course, we get the Aeneid, dropped it, not the Aeneid, which is a Homer poem, but the Aeneid, which is a different group of gods. Obviously going to play in very important. We get a discussion later on about betrayals from Amit and such. But yeah, this information being dropped going to be very important, of probably exactly why there's 9 and not 7 like the museum thinks. Crawley is our gold statue man. Crawley is Bertrand Crawley, character from the comics. Has had a few different incarnations, what I'm read in and sort of looked in, but we're going to see more of this character. This is not just a statue in the background. This is something that we'll definitely play. Whether it's big or small, we don't know. And the staying awake stuff. I love that whole sequence of, like, re-listening this over. The puzzles. How he's flipping that thing with just the one finger and stuff. Either that's a well-oiled Rubik's Cube or that guy's just insane, because I could never do that. I was not good at Rubik's Cubes. And I was looking and seeing how he's reading the book at one point. The book comes back and now there's things highlighted and underlined. Is he doing this? Is this part of his dream self? I love how this repetition drops us into a disoriented state. So when he does suddenly wake up elsewhere, we're spinning kind of with him. I love that kind of use of imagery and storytelling and stuff like this. Again, establishing our character very early on. Do we know what's going on? Probably not, but we're getting enough. and then you wake up in the mountains with the squished face. Ah! Ah!
And I'm like, are we dreaming again? I'm so confused. What's going on?
Yes, and that was such a beautiful, perfect, I think, little transition, because yeah, it does shock us and into a very unreal. Even he's like, well, that's weird. What the it was a beautiful transition. And again, even the shotting, I know we're going from night to day, but even the shooting style feels different when he's on this little adventure. I mean, it's brighter and such. It's much more straightforward than when we had with Steven, which is much darker, smaller, a lot of shadowy stuff going on. And this is all like, bright, here you go. This is what's going on. So, yeah, let's kick this off with you, Rob, real quick. What is your thought of our bit? And let well, okay, let's just talk the waking up here, and then I do want to spend a couple of minutes talking about Arthur, Ethan Hawke's character.
Just that I think I loved how it's revealed that he clearly like jumped from this window without a care in the world, and him just having to look up and go, how did any of this happen? Just fantastic. Just again, the way that they edit, like if they do that too much, it will get old. But seeing as how this is episode 1, all these great edits from one shot to the next, one personality switching to the next, or missing time. If you're a fan of the X-Files, you've seen this done plenty of times, but with a lot more kind of like a little bit more flash and stuff. This is just instant. And it makes the episode clip. Mm-hmm. So you have all that and just gorgeous cinematography. One thing I kept looking for was, when is the CGI gonna be? Like, when are we gonna have Mandalorian backgrounds? How fake are they gonna make this? And to see how much practical stuff they still did in this, gotta give it up to them, man. They could have just cheaped out and like, well, not that it's cheap to do it like that, but they could have been like, we'll just put it all in post, and everybody will just be in front of a green screen.
No, it was all very epically shot. Wes is mentioning something about there's chatter about that being Dr. Doom's castle in the background. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, if they want to start dropping little hints on that, cool, but I would love that personally to be all quiet that we could piece together later on. But I like the thought there. Corrie, what about yourself? What did you think of our Grant, and also the sudden, can't say appearance because you don't see it, but definitely booming voice? What did you think of our introduction of this booming voice?
Yeah, the parasite. He calls him a parasite. Like, I'm like, who is this narrator that is taking over? Like, so I assumed it was one of the Egyptian gods just because of the hints that we've had throughout the episode and whatnot. And, and I wasn't sure if there were multiple voices. Like, it seemed like this booming voice that was calling him a parasite and that was annoyed was different from the reflection that we have at the end of the episode. So yeah. I don't know how many identities are going on here, which just makes it keeps you on your toes because there's always something new happening, but it also makes it a little bit confusing to follow. But I'm sure I will figure it out as we go. Again, I've only watched it once. I definitely need to go back and watch this again because there's just so much going on, and I'm sure there's stuff that I missed. But to me, it just came across as sort of a deistic, godlike narrative voice that's trying to tell him what to do. And obviously he's not doing what they want him to do. And this voice is getting frustrated, which, goes sort of turns into comedy, right?
Of course.
I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah, this human that's messing up whatever the gods' plans are, and they're getting frustrated with him. Yeah.
You annoying humans. Yes, as Bill Casey points out in the chat, that is F. Murray Abraham as our voice in the air, which, okay, it's Khonshu. It's not that much of a spoiler. I gotta say, I mean, look, F. Murray Abraham can read the phone book. Okay, the guy is amazing. I don't know if I really like the design of his voice coming in because it was so
Jarring.
different than the other stuff. I mean, I think it does fulfill that big booming God voice, but I think especially with the change of lighting and character, it did add an oddly comical effect to it that I got over. But my first kind of introduction feel off of that. But what about you, Rob? What would you think about our voice of, I don't know, God?
I really, I dug it. I know what I mean. Again, they're trying to give the balance here. If you make it too like godlike, it's gonna be maybe too much for some people. But also the way that the voice sounds in the book, like there's this kind of big depth to the voice, but it's also speaks kind of like he speaks here, where it's like like how somebody that's like a god. What if a god was like a person, had to, like, you know what I mean, like in an avatar, the way they would talk about us, how they look at us, and just kind of plain like we're just, I think it's great. I kept thinking it was Liam Neeson for some reason. I would have been
be a good choice.
But F. Murray Abraham, especially, I like what Bill Casey did there with the Abraham and Isaac thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional, but it's there regardless. But it's not the first time also that I've, like characters like Deadpool have had like different inner monologues with different voices, different styles of voices. So I was used to that too, but it didn't, again, I was along for the ride. And again, I was making reasonable concessions to what they needed to do to make it fun and believable and relate, and not go too far in one direction or the other.
Yeah. And to be perfectly honest, again, I'm nitpicking right here for sure. It's just one of those like, that sounds a little tinny to me. Maybe you should have put a little more bass in it. Maybe, whatever. That's my annoying stuff. But let's move on to Arthur, our villain for this story. We get our introduction with him at the beginning of the episode, without really seeing the face, the drink, the smashing of the cup, which looks all very Jewish ceremony to me.
Yep.
And then the pouring the glass into the shoes so we can walk around. That's usually, one of those self-torturing type perceptions of religion. But it was interesting because my wife thought immediately that, is this so that he looks infirm? And I was kind of wondering because he does walk with the cane and he does have that slow kind of step. And it's like, the fact that the question to me is asked makes this even more interesting, because one is like, okay, you're walking around with glass under your feet. And you don't have messed up feet. So there's something definitely weird going on here. But that you can ask those multiple questions. And as we see the character, I would buy it either way. But God, man, Ethan Hawke, the fact that we have a villain who is not villainous, really, he's not mustache twirly. He's a zealot, maybe, and committed, but he doesn't fit the standard villain introduction. He's a guy doing his thing, and to be perfectly honest, Stephen interrupts his thing. Of course he's going to be upset. And I like that. We've had so many different types of villains, but having a villain who isn't a villain, or is a villain in the sense of they believe in their thing, but it's not an outright. He even was kind of like, just give me my thing and I'll let you go. I mean, he didn't say I'll let you go, but he kind of gave that impression of like, I'm after my thing. I don't care about you.
Can we trust him?
I wouldn't trust him at all, but
And that's the question. I mean, they say, just give me my thing. And then they like sing a pack of like Egyptian god dogs on you in a museum.
Yeah. And I mean, actually, he's obviously, the villain of the story, but from an introduction standpoint, I kind of like that coming in. And obviously we do see that there is some power going on. Is it blessed by the gods? Is it something in him that's being, manifested? Is he taking their lives? Is he taking that energy when people die or not? Is he just a conduit for it? Again, a lot of questions, but the fact that it's subtly presented, I really kind of enjoyed. What did you think? You know a little bit more about Arthur, Robb. I'm sure. What did you think of this introduction of the character, and what did you glean off of him? How did you feel on it?
Well, we're talking about Ethan Hawke. I mean, I've been watching this guy since I was a kid, and I've grown up with him, and to see him like take on he's been taking on some really incredible and getting roles that he's really dove 100% into, going kind of like very method a lot lately. If you haven't seen the he played the Civil War the good Lord Bird on Showtime, I think it was what it was called.
Okay,
where he played the real life Southern man that, oh God, I'm kicking myself because I love history. Anyway, this guy's
I don't have Showtime, but I do remember seeing some ads and stuff for that. Yeah.
But just seeing him like go for it, just completely go for it. And like you said, there's a story here about why he's here at all. And I'll let you tell that one. But the whole, I got a real David Carradine vibe from him. Like Kane from Kung Fu found a real messed up religion to get involved in and went to the Swiss out. Like, and now he's just walking around, because I got like, even his music made me think a little bit of like some of the Bill theme song from Kill Bill. Like, he's just this regular guy, but it's, what do you say about like people that really believe in something? They can do things that maybe they didn't intend for them to get to. He seems kind of innocent. He seems kind of like he wants to just do the thing. Like, to him, it's right. No matter, like, he doesn't have to try to convince us. He doesn't want to try to convince really anybody. His belief is strong enough that it's pulling everyone else in, and they want this. And he's had this, like, how long has he been in this place? How long did it take for him to take over this little Swiss village? And how many people are even from there? But the whole thing with the walking on glass thing, I mean, that's classic. Like, I remember, I was thinking of Paul Bettany in was that like in the Da Vinci Code, right?
The flagellants, like, isn't that the
the mark of a man who wants to, that looks forward to being tested, almost like he's on this kind of path that the pain is part of it. Pain, like to walk a mile. Like, I think a lot of that stuff deals with that. It's a very biblical thing what he's doing, and like you said, it's like it's a Jewish tradition, I believe, or not a tradition, but it's not like young kids are out there.
Ceremony.
Come on, kids! It's time to put the glass in the shoes. But taking all that and what he did here and what he's going to do, and yeah, you're right. He's totally, completely like confident in himself enough and believes enough that he's not worried about everybody else. He just wants what he wants. Now, the longer he doesn't get what he wants, I imagine things are going to get more and more crazy. And the more and more of Mark and Steven and whoever are in there are going to get more drawn into this guy's thing. What I want to know, like, really is, like, there's obviously been like there's like, wow, God, how do I talk about this without spoiling anything? But like, how long has this been? Like, clearly this is a mission that's been like a lot of like planning going on, right? And we're in the middle of the mission.
Yeah.
There's so much going on post and pre these events that we don't know, that even we as an audience don't know, even as fans of the show or the books don't know where they're really going to go with this. But when you have, in the end, when you bring it down to like this one character who he's not afraid to look kind of not great. Ethan Hawke, I'm sure if they spent like 2 seconds in the makeup trailer with him, they could make him look so much, better. But instead he's looking that part, and every mannerism, every choice I think that they're making with this character, he's probably had a lot of insight into, and they probably gave him some freedom to explore some of these things that this character might be into. I think, like you said, now I'll stop talking so you can talk about why he's even here. But it just feels like we're watching masterclass acting, and we've got people punching, Egyptian monsters. It's like, how the hell? I'm here for that,
Corey, what about you? What did you think of Ethan's introduction and the character that we're bringing off, and basically our conflict that kind of gets defined right here?
Yeah, it was a very interesting introduction, and I was picking up on a lot of like different religious imagery. Like you talked about the breaking of the glass, which is part of the Jewish wedding ceremony, and like walking on hot coals is done in like Eastern religion, and walking on glass, I guess, is more Western. But any kind of like self-penance does have a history in religion.
Right.
So it was interesting, but then his clothing was more Eastern style. And I was just like, what does he want? And who is he working with or for, aside from the God that he is following? Like, is there somebody else involved with this? And basically we just have this zealous cultist who has, brought all these people. But it was very interesting. And I liked there were little references to the Egyptian, like the weighing of the heart and the feather, which they do once you've died. And then if you looked at, I think it was his cane that he was balancing between his hand and he was weighing things, but the handle has the 2 crocodiles, which are the crocodiles that in that religion, they would eat the heart if the heart was not deemed worthy, right?
Sure, and that's our Amit reference right there. Yeah.
So it was neat to be able to pick out those little things here and there with the limited knowledge I know of Egyptian religion and the gods there. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that and picking those out. But I was. At first, I wasn't sure if it was a dream, so I didn't really know if he was real. So when he showed up later on in London, that's when I realized, oh, this is actually a real person. It wasn't all a dream. And the fact that he has all these people under his control, that's a little bit scary.
Villains do love their matching uniforms, don't they? You notice all the night they always got this was all the shirt and vest. I think, and not tracksuits this time.
Yeah, and just blindly following, and then what happened to that woman? She I'm not going to be letting him take my hands and weigh anything on me,
Sure,
weight or not.
Yeah.
I have a scale at home for that. Thanks.
Well, and that was the interesting thing is she's like, I was good my whole life. I believe you. It might be something you're going to do, but the God sees the whole life. So I mean. Yes or no? How do you really know? I mean, how do you judge that? Well, you would have done some bad stuff.
You're being blamed. I don't know. You're being blamed for something you haven't even done yet. That kind of smacks of like sci-fi.
Minority Report.
Yeah, Minority Report, right? And I mean, if you go into like religious studies, like, that's not how, at least for Christianity, that's not how Christianity works. It's not about blaming the person. It's about forgiveness and Christ taking that on as a sacrifice. And so you're not, that's how that works. So it's a totally different approach, obviously. Yeah, so I was a little bit weirded out by that. Like, great, we're just randomly killing people without any consequences here. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a little more background into Arthur in the book, like, because he's only been in one arc, really. I believe this is like his second appearance, and like Bill Casey's saying, he kind of feels like a cult leader. He totally is. And like I said, the book, he goes like way more, and I don't know if we're gonna get to how nutty things even start with this character, because I mean, in the book, spoilers for the book, but they're talking about Ra in the books, and there's a lot of fire, and there's a lot of people getting burned alive, and that was in the first appearance. Okay, so he didn't do nothing like that in this. Like the mystery surrounding what's actually caused that woman's death. Is it him? Is it the thing? Is it a kind of a venom symbiote type of matter where he's the avatar for this thing, and he's been given some of its power, kind of like I think of like Renfield from like Dracula, right? The guy who's sitting there preparing for the master's arrival, right? And doing all kinds of creepy stuff and bringing in the people, and he's, I think the ultimate goal though is that this Renfield would be, elevated to like Dracula status, times a million.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's a little bit more into Arthur from the books.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm excited to see more of him, obviously, and Ethan is really bringing it to his performance, which is obviously it's. I think the energy between your hero and your villain is always the best definition of how that film is going to do. If you've got a good, strong energy and the conflict is there, it's going to work. If you're not feeling the danger, then it's not going to happen. But we get a lot of danger right here. And
dangerous cupcakes.
Yes, and they meet in the first episode, right? We're not like waiting penultimate episode, like hiding in the shadows. These two guys don't meet until the end. No, they meet right away.
Oh no, it kicks off. Well, and it's great. You hit the point. This is like in the middle of the adventure. There was all this planning beforehand. All these nights where Stephen was not really in bed or doing other things and coming back and having people asked out for dinner, which we'll hit on in a second. So obviously lots of stuff going on, and I think I love the fact that's how we kick this off, because like this whole sequence does, it throws us right into the action, whether we're ready for it or not. And we can be just as disoriented as Stephen is in the middle of it, but of course still enjoy mountain treks and fights where you're blipping in and out of consciousness.
That was cool.
Again, it's a fun way of doing it, and nothing has to make sense because you are appearing and disappearing out of consciousness. So the sequence and order of things are always going to be up for question. I think it's a really fun way to keep that tempo up. Now, I did want to ask you guys briefly, why do you think this is suddenly happening? My idea is because he grabs the scarab, and that is what is suddenly making Stephen be the conscious one. Because it's definitely upsetting, F. Murray Abraham, and later on the other voices that are happening. It's not going on unless there's an absolute danger or the scarab's pulled away from him. But we don't really get into it. So what do you guys think? Why are we suddenly jumping into this switcheroo?
Well, it depends on if you think how God, try to stay away from spoilers.
We are torturing Rob's brain.
Well, I mean, I think that the reason he's there is Steven's there is basically you need your everyday average patsy to be the one that no one will notice while the real work is being done afterwards. You need a face for this. How much of Stephen Grant, if he really peeled it back, would even be real to him? Who's he talking to on his phone?
Is it Mom? Yeah.
I don't think so. And clearly somebody else is looking for him, and it's probably from someone from America. So you think this all started, say, in New York, and something went down there that caused Khonshu to go, we need to go there. This is where this is happening. There is a disturbance in the Egyptian force. And this person they exist. They know of each other's existence, right? These gods would know of each other's presence and things like that. I think it's like a pull. And all the stories that we don't know yet about Mark and the Khonshu and the creation of all these personalities, whenever they decide to get to it, it's fine. Take your time. I am good with like letting everybody get these layers peeled, back. But I think that that's probably where this is going, and that we might end up back in New York. We might not. I don't care. I'm literally just, this first episode garnered so much goodwill that I'm willing to, like, even if next episode's doesn't blow my mind, I'm along for the ride. At least we've only got 6 of them, right? Yeah. So even if they only compare slightly to this, I'm good, because you can just tell that there's a plan. There is a plan here, and one of the greatest joys I get from this really is the fact that just because I know the source material so well, doesn't mean that they haven't crafted a story that's going to surprise me in a good way. And a lot of times we complain about that stuff, like especially with like The Walking Dead, things like that have, can follow the big beats, but also drop the ball drastically.
Sure.
But this is not big, but that's a phenomenon. You can have more play. There's more room to play here. And I think that the fans, as long as you come out the gate like this, we are willing to, let you take it into directions that we might not expect or know we wanted. And I think that I'm saying think a lot, aren't I? That's it. I got to stop. I got to keep making sure.
I know. It's easy to get carried away. Yeah. Corrie, what about yourself? What did you think about why is this happening right now?
Oh, I mean, I just assumed that the scarab is the key to it, because as soon as he takes it, that's when everything kind of kicks off and everybody wants it. Everyone's trying to get it from him, rip it out of his hands. And then we have that scene where he wakes up or comes to and the scarab's covered in blood and he's like murdered people or at least knocked them unconscious really for a long period of time. Sure. And he has a whole town chasing after him. So obviously, whatever is connected with this scarab is important. What does it offer? Does it have powers of some kind? Is it the key for him to become like the next generation Moon Knight? Is this like a Pokemon thing where he's gonna evolve? I don't know, but obviously there's a reason behind it, and we have Egyptian dogs attacking in the museum because of this scarab. One of my guesses was maybe he sent to the museum to retrieve it because someone else is going to try to get it, right? Maybe the cult leader is, going to get it. So, he's going into a different personality to retrieve it to keep it safe. I don't know.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Also,
interesting. Yeah.
His poor date experience. I felt so.
Yeah, let's get into that, because this is his return back, or his awaken, thinking it's all a dream, lasts for about this long. When, not only does he realize the date thing, but even before that, a little fish incident. Little Nemo there suddenly has a second fin. Something happened.
Yeah.
I don't think he fed the fish while he was gone. and it died. And like any parent, the other personality had to go and get a new fish to try and replace. Oh, I mean, I would imagine that'd be kind of an odd thing to look up and see your one fin fish suddenly has two fins.
I mean, we're dealing with Egyptian gods. Maybe something miraculously happened. Is there a god of fish?
Sure, but it's definitely outside of this was all a dream scenario, especially
Yeah.
when, as you were mentioning, he shows up for his date 2 days late. God, that was so sad.
Yeah, it was sad. And then he leaves. He calls his mom, whoever that is. He's got the flowers. He says, yeah, she loved the flowers, puts them in the garbage as he's walking by, and he has the chocolate. And I'm like, oh, I mean, dude, let's go get steak together. It'll be okay.
Look, if personality A is going to set up a date for personality B, personality A needs to be sure that B gets there on time, or at least calls the date. Hi, I'm in the Alps. Can't make steak tonight. I mean, I guess that's a giveaway, but still.
Also, why are the women all so mad? His boss
They
is
did.
horrible. Even the lady on the date wasn't like, at least give him another chance. I'd at least ask, why didn't you show up? Not just hang up.
They did such a great job of him not accepting, like not, understanding until the last second. That no, like that desperate no, like just just the everything that's gone on and this too, and this is now affected, and just that him just sitting there not even able to tell the waiter the temperature of his steak, and he's a vegan. Well, this Stephen Grant's and he's just he can't even do it. He's like, yeah, sure, yeah, good. Just he's so. It's the last thing. It's just like, and I love it. I couldn't believe that they were writing these great scenes. Just
Well,
Worst
and as
day
Sofa
ever.
mentions, Oscar just pulling it out there. I mean, oh, it was so sad. It's just like, what part of the steak do you want? Yeah, the best part. And how do you want it cooked? Yeah. Cooked. Yeah.
good,
All right.
right?
You get a vegan. He doesn't know anything about steak.
At least that part of him is vegan.
But this is, of course, where his life starts to fall apart. He finds the mysterious phone with a whole bunch of calls from a Layla and one from a Duchamp. We're going to save that for a future episode, folks. Yes, all of these names mean something. But this is where we get a final phone call, and the Mark name, which was in his dreams, pops up, and this starts a whole cascade of panic. You think Mark's really trying to protect Steven? Because the voice keeps saying, stop pursuing it, step back. Is this the protected personality that Mark doesn't really want to get involved? I mean, again, I don't know how dissociative identity disorder necessarily works, or if this again is really more just the thematic film version of it. But yeah, that it's like a family that just can't talk to each other well, I guess.
I don't know I think he's trying to tell him, like, maybe Steven's personality had a mental break of its own, and he's just there to fill a role. So why is he able to keep? What's wrong with Mark that has this guy that keeps taking control? What's going on with Mark's mission and his life that is causing the weaker personality to come through in this situation? Again, I almost would think that I'm kind of expecting an episode that is taken like shown from Mark's perspective to now.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
like see how we got here. I could see that. But there has to be some kind of conflict, because anytime, if you know these kind of things, like there's that other Showtime show, the United States of Terra, that's handled like what triggers an alter to come out, what's happening in that person's life that lets them take control, and for how long. If you haven't seen that show, Toni Collette, that's all I have to say. Toni Collette,
Toni Collette,
multiple
that's
personalities. Check that show out. I think it's on Hulu. Fantastic show that also goes into a lot about alters and mental illness and triggering, which we haven't really touched on the mental illness thing, but we can talk about that in another episode. But clearly there's just something more messed up. And again, I love that they're not answering these questions. They're not rushing to like give us answers to these things. It's all like this big onion that's going to start getting peeled. And once a year, we'll get 6 episodes, hopefully for 4 or 5 years, maybe cross. Fingers crossed.
I purposely put this down as season 1, episode 1, just hoping and planning there's going to be a lot more of the story coming towards us in the future.
For Frenchie, Silver Surfer wants to know who I would cast as Frenchie. I would cast Cassell, the dude that was the bad guy in Ocean's 12.
Oh, let's see. Oh, okay. Okay.
I can't remember his first name, if it's Timothy or Sam Cassell, but he's a lanky Frenchman, and he's very smooth. But I would like to see him in kind of that like role that, if you know what I'm talking about, I think this guy's never gotten to really play a role like that. That is kind of the on the nose, like it's Frenchie. It's a little, it's a little on the nose. What do you think he's gonna act like? You just hear that name, you think Alfred a little bit, the sidekick. Even I would even compare, I can't believe I'm going to do this. I would even compare him a little bit to like Shia LaBeouf's character in Constantine. Don't hit me.
Well, I see what you're saying. All right, Corey, what about yourself and this whole kind of appearance of Mark, and that, again, is he dreaming? Is he not? We have elevator issues going on.
Yes. Okay, well, just a side question I kept thinking of as I was watching this episode was, how on earth is he keeping this job? If he's constantly waking up in weird locations, forgetting things, being late, missing days, I'm like, how is he still employed by the British Museum?
That I think is a very good question. I think they may be getting into that, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, no wonder everybody hates him. He's probably constantly missing work and doing this and appearing and being late because of doing other things at times.
So I really liked the scene with the elevator and the creature that was coming down the hallway, and I wasn't sure if this was again a dream or if a different, is he awake? Is he asleep? Is he in an what's going on? But I love that, like, the electricity goes crazy, and he's seeing himself in the elevator with the mirror. So there's all this use of like duality, like you were talking about, and reflections to show how he has multiple identities and multiple personalities, or as Wes was saying, they're called alters, I believe is the current term. And I mean, he tells him to stop looking, but he's in an elevator with a mirror, so it had like a double meaning of like, stop looking for answers, but like stop looking like at me or at yourself, or looking too deep into yourself, because there's multiples there that are going to be showing up. And then the fact that the monster transferred or changed into this elderly lady, I mean, that I was just getting horror vibes from that. And then we have the electricity later on in the other like sort of fight chase scene that happens.
Right.
And what I thought was cool with that electricity is, if you looked on the bathroom wall, and I won't get into it, but it flickers, and there's Egyptian designs that show up and then flicker away, which I thought was like, oh, that's so cool. And so I like how they use light and dark and shadow to make it difficult to know, like, did I really see something? Did I not? It kind of reminds me of when you're a little kid going to bed at night and you're like, did something move? Did the closet door open? Am I just seeing it? Is it really there? So those elements of the spooky and the horror coming out was neat to see that.
Yeah, I think using a lot of those horror techniques definitely plays in really well and matches in, especially with a lot of the confusion in what is real and what isn't real. I do want to jump into our final little bit there, our second meeting with Arthur, and of course our big Moon Knight reveal. But as we get back to London, right after the elevator scene, there's a little Easter egg that Robb here has discovered, and he hit me up on earlier today, that nobody else has talked about. I haven't seen it anywhere on the internet. Maybe it's popped up here or there, but we got, I think, like a world Easter egg reveal happening right now. Robb, what did you spot?
Okay, now I honestly, I fully expect somebody to tell me that this isn't true, but I mean, I point, you know, like, and if it's not, like, we've also talked about this, they found somebody that just, I don't know if they're purposely trying to give us a red herring or an Easter egg or not, but on the bus, about 27 minutes, I think. There's only a few seconds.
But 32 is where my snapshot is right here.
When he wakes up on the bus and they show some people reacting to him reacting to waking up on the bus, I believe that is Brian Tyree Henry, who played Fastos in the Eternals. And no one's talked about this at all. He looks at him, he acknowledges him, he sees him, and I thought, that's him, isn't it? Like I said, I fully expect for people to tell me that that's not Fastos. It's just an extra that looks like Brian Tyree Henry. But boy, oh boy, like it's not in the credits, and yeah, nobody's talking about it, but it's really, really cool. And even if it isn't true,
this is center screen, and he is the one. If you go through the sequence, oh, sorry, that's my dog eating toy. He is the one that's staring right at him the whole time. Everyone else pretty much looks away, and he looks at him the whole time. It goes into focus and catches this background and comes back. So, yeah, if it's not him, look, man, I pulled up all of Fastos pictures and everything. The hairstyle, the bang, the shape, even the outfit is reminiscent of something that he was wearing within there. So, look,
even if it's not, the Eternals are following us. They're paying attention. They're paying attention to the heroes, and they just want to blend into the background and keep tabs on people. They are keeping tabs on people, right? We know this. So,
right. Well, Wes says he thinks he saw Cersei in the first bus scene, and I think she does work at the London Museum, doesn't she? In Eternals, that's why I kept expecting to see some little crossover. So, look. If this is an Easter egg, this is the best, perfect, subtle Easter egg you can do, because it's not really brought up. It's subtle. It's not hidden. You don't see him in any other things. He kind of ducks down, and then it's we see him behind Oscar Isaac's shoulder, and then he leaves the bus, and we're just looking at Ethan Hawke popping up right there. So it's a super subtle one if this is an Easter egg. But to me, this is the way you do it. You just if somebody catches it, great. And if they don't, no big deal. But that's Robb who found that. And I will try and post that up on my Twitter feed of those two pictures. And hey, look, if we're wrong, we're wrong. No big deal. Otherwise, man, he gets the credit.
Yay, but Robb. It's still a cool idea. And I think maybe even if I'm, you know, most likely wrong, I just that's where my mind is because I like Eternals. So I'm thinking about this. My eyes are always open. I don't really have to scan anything for Easter eggs. If there's something that's Marvel and it pops up on that screen and I don't see it, you know, that's why I feel like I have to be wrong, because everybody sees everything, everybody scans everything, and I would feel this. I almost want to be wrong because I don't want the whole world to know me as the guy who saw Fastos on the bus.
Okay, admittedly, that's maybe not real the reputation grab that you want to get, but
yeah, and Silva saying Fastos would be a good person to make Moon Knight's weapons. Absolutely.
Totally. So I mean, it is. And look, when Moon Knight ends, what pops up? What popped up on your feed to be the next thing to watch? Eternals.
Yep.
Just saying. All right, so let's get on to our final, because we're already past the hour point. But let's get on to our final meeting with Arthur, where chaos lives within, a beautiful little bit, and our big Moon Knight reveal. Corey, let's kick things off with you. What did you think about this nice return to the museum, our appearance of Arthur and his minions around, and the big dog chase? We'll just throw this all into one big moment here.
Yeah, I think it was interesting and a little bit disconcerting how nobody wanted to help him when he came running in. Like, someone's following me. Can you please keep an eye out? Like, the security guard was completely useless.
Look, otter film.
And then we find out. Yeah. And then you find out, that he's actually a member of this Egyptian cultist group with the tattoo on his arm. Right. So that was just a bit disconcerting, and nobody's really helping this poor guy. But I thought it was an interesting argument that he made, saying that Ammit, the god, would have stopped all these bad people. But then we don't have free will, right? Like, it gets into a philosophical quandary of,
Sure.
Is it actually good to do that? And then is this like a dictatorship, like God with a, hammer and throwing lightning? Is that necessarily a good thing? If you believe everyone innately is evil, like if you follow the Judeo-Christian path,
Sure.
then like if we're letting Ammit rule, then everybody gets killed because nobody's good enough, right? So then we just kill all of humanity, right? So I thought that was just a very interesting sort of philosophical discussion that was going on there. And then hearing all these voices, the voice in his head again, right?
Mm-hmm,
and then it was quite interesting. He says, the truth is that chaos is in you. And that the scales couldn't weigh him. And so I wasn't sure if that was because they're trying to weigh more than one identity, like more than one person. So like maybe, Stephen is like good, but then another character, like the part of him that was murdering all the people, that might not come off as good on the scales. And so he can't actually be weighed.
Right.
So that was really cool. And then if we jump to the night shift scene with the dogs, or the Egyptian creature dogs.
I would probably call it what are they? I'll remember it. Go ahead.
Like Anubis.
Anubis, right?
Yeah, they're like jackals, but they're like demon jackals.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting because I had the closed captioning on, and it described the sound as a dog whining or crying. It wasn't a howl. And so that made me think of back to the weighing his heart and talking about, like, if you're a good person, your heart is good. And I thought, well, this shows that Stephen's character, at least in this incarnation, is good because he's reacts to like help whatever the dog is. And I was thinking that's exactly what people do when they want to rob a house, right? They make the sound of a baby crying outside or a dog whimpering. You open the door and then so he's kind of falling for these bad tricks, but it shows that his character is good, even though he's a little bit of a, he's not the superhero figure, at least in that incarnation, but he's a good guy. He's trying. Yeah, and then we basically get into that wolf attack from the museum, which was crazy. And I love how they use shadows throughout that, where he looks and he doesn't really see something. And then they played into that horror trope of like, okay, we're playing hide and seek now. He's like, come on out wherever you are, right? Which makes me think of like the big bad wolf or something. Pun intended.
Sure.
Yeah, so basically that's kind of what I was pulling out from it.
Right on.
And did you still want to talk about the reveal of the double the identity in the mirror?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Let us know what you thought on that big reveal, because it is kind of a big part. I think they do a great build up there with, again, the multiple imageries and the reflections here and there.
Yeah. So I think I thought it was interesting. This is the first time we actually have the conversation where his other identity is asking for him to give over control. Because previously we just had moments where there was a snap or a glitch and it happened, right? Whereas this time he's saying, like, you can't be fighting me. So that answers the question of what was happening previously, where he was fighting this change.
Right.
So he's saying, like, you can't be fighting me. The monsters are real. So he's claiming that as a truth, that this isn't all in your mind, which we've been wondering throughout the episode, that no, this is real. The threat is real. And this other identity of his can save them. So it was a really neat sort of superhero reveal moment. I'd love to talk a little bit about the costumes.
Sure. Let's hold on that for just a brief sec. Yeah. Rob, what about you? Our reintroduction of Arthur and, of course, his perception of the chaos. And yeah, I love the idea of the multiple personalities throwing off any judgment was awesome. And then, of course, our big late night museum chase.
All I'll add is that I think this is going to end up in a situation of Arthur wanting Stephen involved. I think he's going to be drawn into this, he thinks he can help him. And I think that'll probably cause Arthur to try to find leverage on Stephen. And I think maybe when he starts looking more into Stephen, Arthur's going to start learning more about Mark, or possibly like if Stephen isn't a real, fully realized person, which I don't really think he is. I think he's like a newborn who's just been given a basic routine to follow. So I think that it's going to draw in like other characters. It's going to create more danger because, Stephen's not even going to know who some of these people are that are in danger because of whatever's going on, because of who they know. They don't know him. It's like when he goes there at the beginning, and gets caught in the village. He's like, I don't even, I'd give it to you if I could. Like he's, so I think that's the extra part for that scene, and just the reveal of, Moon Knight. I honestly thought, I think we even said that would be the last shot of the first season. And instead it's the last shot of the first episode. And come on. All you need to know, all they really had to tell you about Moon Knight was two things: the sink getting thrown out the door and slamming into the wall, and this big scary monster being dragged like nothing. We don't even see him fling it into the corner, but we know it happened, and the boom, boom, power behind it. We've seen this small guy. We know that there's some epic violence capable, from Mark, but we don't even know the power of the other guy. And that's another reason why I love this. It's like the identity thing, and that's why I love the Hulk, because of all the different things that are going on internally with this character. And it's like, you think the one guy is dangerous. What about the other guy? What about this guy or this guy? You just don't know. And I love it so much.
Yeah. No, that was exactly the point that I wanted to. The creature that was chasing him, that took him out, is trying to escape, and he drags him back into the bathroom to finish beating him down, or her. It's I don't know how gender works with demon jackals and such. But B. I think that is right. That's like all that you have to say. I did want to bring out they sneak in just one of my favorite little lines of the episode when he's talking about he was even betrayed by his avatar. Avatar, blue people love that film. And then follows up with, you mean the anime? Which was just the perfect. I mean, God, again, I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you haven't seen it, what is wrong with you? I just love that little bit, and it was so small, and it was just done in like the perfect way. It just an off the cuff statement. I thought was awesome. Yeah, Corrie, you wanted to mention something about the costumes.
Yes. Well, just the costume, the final costume we see at the end.
Yeah.
So I love that they used like that hood, which made me think of like Assassin's Creed a bit, but it's a very medieval thing, and you see it echoed earlier in the scene when they are in Germany, when he's trying to blend in with the crowd and he pulls up his hood. And I know someone was making a joke online of like, this is the Marvel version of being incognito. It's like, no, we're just wearing baseball caps and nothing's changed. But I like that they did that, because that is actually a medieval, that hood or cape or cap is a medieval thing. And so that links in with like the imagery of the knight, Knight. And
right.
The rest of the costume is like wrappings, which made me think of Egyptian mummies. So it was cool to have that crossover of like the Egyptian costume design and then the like knight, knight of the round table, sort of medieval knight. So that was cool. And in honor, I was wearing my knight on horseback little medallion. You can't see it, but it's there. So
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, that was just my comment on.
Yeah, I was really curious how they were actually going to, when they were talking about Moon Knight, how they were going to do the costume. Are they going to do more of a scaled back version of one? Are they going to go full comic? Which direction they design ways were they going to go? And the fact that, like you said, they mixed these two, that they really pulled off of the Egyptian mummy wrap and everything for the whole look and the face and everything, and then adding on just the kind of cool cloak, which is used so much with the mood stuff with it. We'll see later on in the show. Just God, man, Marvel costume design, just my God. Always better than I can even imagine.
Yeah, basically, if there's a fight going on somewhere, I'm sticking with that guy in that costume. I'm just like, I'll just follow him, because then I won't die from these demonic jackals.
Perfect. Well, that does pretty much end our episode. This is episode 1. We get a 6-episode run. Really excited. We're gonna have some nice mix up with guests. Robb's gonna be joining me for a lot of these because I need to pull off of his knowledge. I got a real special guest coming up next week. I'm not even gonna reveal yet, just in case anything comes up, and then I can explain later. But really excited about this one. So yeah, next 6 weeks, Thursday nights, we're going to be doing Moon Knight. Now, I do want to throw up one little bit of news that got dropped this morning, because we would have a couple of weeks off and then go right into Kenobi, Obi-Wan's own show, except it's getting delayed by 2 days.
Okay.
Instead of Wednesday, it's coming out on Friday. That messes up my whole schedule. But we're getting 2 episodes. So we're getting the first 2 episodes out on May 27th, that Friday. So we'll have to figure out when we're going to do our review, whether it be Saturday or Sunday night. But I believe we get to go back to Thursdays because they'll be dropping every Wednesday after that. We do have some Miss Marvel overlap that's going on with this. I got to try and figure out how we're going to figure out schedules there. But hey, stick around. This is where that like and subscribe and notification buttons all come in. Then it'll drop right to your feed when I let you guys know when all these changes are, and you won't miss an episode. So let's get any final thoughts and then let people know where they can find you. Robb, let's kick things off with you.
Final 2 things. The fact that they also made Khonshu the skull with the bird beak and everything. It's totally out of... Sorry. I was just... I haven't gotten this geeked out since Cap picked up the freaking hammer. And the other thing is the old woman flipping the bird to him as he drives off is one of the funniest things because the look on her face is the best. It is the best. It is. Look at that woman's face and tell me that's not the best thing you've seen all day. The only other thing that comes close is maybe a baby and a cat doing it together, like both flipping the bird.
Yeah, sure.
Because that was just absolute hilarity. That woman, you stole the entire action sequence from everyone. So anyway, that's what I have. You can find me here a lot of times and on my channel, Smirking Reviews, where we're trying all sorts of new things and making less content, but hopefully better content.
Right on. Always good to game high. Corey, what about yourself? Any final thoughts and where can people find you?
Hot take. I've figured out what this character's previous job was. He failed at attempting to be a British cab driver because his sense of direction is terrible. How they filmed this, and I can't take credit from this. This I found online, but apparently, so he's working at the British Museum, but when he's leaving in one of the shots, you can see Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square, which is the home of the National Gallery, not the British Museum, and it's like a mile down the road. It's a completely different area. And then when he's going to the underground station, he's in the Tottenham Court Road area, but that's a 5-minute walk from the museum, and he's going in the wrong direction. And like, he needs a map of London because whoever set up the filming of this did not check the locations of things. And I know that people who are actually from London or know London are complaining about that. So there's that, but that was just a random interesting fact I came across while I was.
Oh yeah, no, I always love watching some of the city stuff. You want to have a good time, watch Venom and see how many times they go past the same theater. It's like 4 times. Yeah, it's yeah.
Okay.
These things happen. Want to thank everybody that's joining us in the archive. Everyone that joined us live, we had a great little chat going on here. Wes Sager, Bill Casey, Silva Surfer, Rena Dietrich dropped in earlier. I saw Barbaro passing through here. Of course, we had Don Willie in as well. I'm sure I'm always missing somebody, but everyone who joined us live, really appreciate it. Be sure to join us next week, Thursday at 6 o'clock. We'll dive into episode 2. Until then, y'all have a good week, and we'll catch you later. Take it easy, and bye-bye.